Live from the Export Beer Garden studios, you're listening to the BYC, where we'll be reflecting on the Black Caps' humbling defeat to Bangladesh. It would be easy to lay all the blame at the feet of our very own colleague Dylan Cleaver, who delivered the ultimate commentator's curse by suggesting New Zealand would casually rack up 700 runs in their first innings and then apply the blowtorch to the Bangladeshi batsmen. It was a reckless declaration and one that ultimately cost us the test match. It should be noted too, these outrageous comments continued on our WhatsApp chat, so much so that our boys never stood a chance. For shame, Dylan Cleaver. For shame.
Well, I can't be blamed for the actual woeful batting performance.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Can I? I mean, there was 700 looking them in the face there. It was it called a gift horse? But no, that was it was a bit humbling, really, wasn't it? For all involved, including myself.
Yes. But I don't know, Paul Ford, I mean, would you classify it as an upset?
Well, it feels disappointing, so I'm going to say yes. But
sure.
I know what you're saying, that, you know, Bangladesh at home, and God, if Tim Southee hasn't said it once, he said it 100 times this week. You know, they're quite difficult to play at home, particularly if you haven't played any warm-up games and you just throw yourself into it. Yeah, look, I think this is the point. I think if we'd played really well and Bangladesh had played superbly and we lost, we might be a little bit annoyed, but, you know, cricket's cricket, whatever.
Yes.
But the thing is, it was an absolute dicking. They've done it to us twice out of the last 3 times we've played them. They don't beat any teams in test matches, Bangladesh, except for the likes of, you know, the West Indies and Zimbabwe. They've only beaten us twice in the 18 times that we've played them. And as I say, two of the last 3 times. So I think it's more the nature of the loss than the loss per se.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's look at the notable performances. Mamadou Joy, 86, of course, in that first innings. Glenn Phillips with his ugly fired-in right-arm offies, 4 for 53. Kane Williamson, of course, another consecutive century, 104. Tajal Islam, 4 for 109. Shanto, 105 in the second innings. Raheem, 67. Miraz, 50. Ajaz Patel, 4 for 148. Daryl Mitchell, 58. The man with the continuous reverse sweep that never connected. And Islam, 6 for 75. What stands out significantly to you there, Dylan Cleaver?
There was just several missed opportunities. Like, while I think it's important to win the toss in Asia generally, because it is always more difficult to bat last on that wicket.
Sure.
We kind of got away with it with that Glenn Phillips 4 for 53 and got them out for 310, which I think they would have been disappointed about Bangladesh, and it really opened the door for New Zealand to get that 700. But I just felt that while 317 is not a bad innings, there were several missed opportunities there. When Kane got his 100 and when he was batting in partnership with Mitchell and Phillips, who both scored 40s, I think.
Yes, 40s.
There just seemed like a real opportunity to not just put New Zealand in a strong position, but to effectively shut the door on Bangladesh in terms of them being able to win. I thought that was a real missed opportunity, and New Zealand just bowled poorly in that third innings, Bangladesh the second innings. And I know that Ajaz ended up with 4 wickets, 4 for 148, but I thought our spinners were really loose. Far too many long hops. I think Ajaz and Ish went for a combined sort of 4.5 up towards 5 and over.
Yeah, they were going for a fair few, that's for sure. And the lack of consistency, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and a test match in those conditions, it's kind of unacceptable. There were just far too many get-out-of-jail balls for the Bangladesh batters to feast on.
Paul Ford, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, you know, as I say, it wasn't just a loss; it was a capitulation. Really, we got thumped, and you've got to remember that Shakib Al Hassan, the captain, and Liton Das, the vice captain, neither of those guys played. And it's this 31-year-old. I know he's more than a journeyman. He's a good player, Tajul Islam, but he's not good enough to get 10 for 184 against us. I mean, I thought that we batted pretty dismally against the spin on a pitch that, sure, it was taking some turn, but it wasn't breaking up. It wasn't wildly inconsistent. It wasn't sort of, you know, frightening stuff. I mean, case in point, our spinners, as you've just mentioned, really failed to dominate. At one point, I must admit, I did dare to dream, and I put a bet on New Zealand at odds of 121-1 to get out of jail. I thought that Daryl Mitchell was going to do his St. Jude mission and get that accomplished. But look, when he got out for 58 in the 10th over of day 5, it was well and truly over. And that lack of partnerships from the New Zealanders, partnerships of 54, 66, 78 and 52 in the first innings. And one of those was, Southey and Jamieson. And then in the second innings, none over 50 and only one over 30. You're not going to win a hell of a lot of test matches when you're batting like that.
Yeah, because, one of the things that we noted last time when going into this test match, it looked like we batted quite deep. You had Phillips coming in after Blundell, Blundell, of course, didn't really get going in this test match, and it looked like a long batting lineup, but it was very much exposed. Now, one of the things that you were saying, and you were having some technical difficulties with Dylan Cleaver, was the coverage. Of course, Warner Bros. Discovery took the opportunity, got it for a basement price, and the commentary you've noted in the notes here drove you balmy.
Yeah, I was really frustrated. I actually thought the coverage was all right. I had a couple of difficulties. I don't know if this applied to everyone else, but I don't think there's a fast forward 10 seconds or rewind 10 seconds button that you normally get on a stream. I couldn't get it up anyway, if there was. Or
was that just God punishing you?
Maybe it was.
But that's because God was monitoring the WhatsApp chat, I think.
Yes.
I think you said Daryl Mitchell would score 200.
Yes, he did.
Thing I remember saying.
Yeah. We're not going to move on quickly from that, are we?
No,
I think he was on 17 when you said that.
Yeah. Well, he was primed for 200. I can't believe it was nipped in the bud. But what I found most frustrating was the commentary, and I find this a little bit. Just they felt like every single space had to be filled up with inane noise.
Yes.
And Grant Elliott was actually the pick of the bunch. I thought Grant was pretty good, but jeepers, it was just. And that kind of commentary where the lead commentator keeps on asking the comments man a question, and very, very trite questions like, if you were the captain now, what would you be saying to the guys in the huddle?
Yes.
And he's not the captain. He doesn't know what they're going to be saying to the guys in the huddle. Just let the game breathe a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I'm silence is golden, and it's a powerful thing, Paul Ford. Let's be honest. I'm stoked that we had coverage.
Yeah, same.
You know what I mean? And while I'm doing the radio show, it's great to have that on in the background and bugger the radio show. What were your thoughts on it, Paul?
Yeah, it was crap. I mean, I've always been a big advocate for having at least the option of no commentary whatsoever, just ground effects, and just have the game play out, and you can just absorb it as if you're sitting on the sideline as a spectator at the match. I don't know why we have to have. We just don't have the option of doing that pretty much for every sports event in the world. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about last time, fellas, was the utterly baffling scenario of Rachin Ravindra not being selected for this test match. None of us could make any sense of that whatsoever. The New Zealand batting coach, Ronke, not even he could really make any sense of it.
He had a good crack at it.
He tried saying that all the batsmen were in form, yada, 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 which is complete bollocks. That was just a baffling decision, Dylan.
Yeah, and I was disappointed with Luke Ronke's explanation. All the batters are in red-hot form. And they're not, actually. Since the start of last summer, Tom Latham and Devon Conway have been in, at best, serviceable form.
Yes.
And look, this is by no means a call to drop those two. I think they're the best opening partnership. I think they're very, very fine players, and their records suggest they're better than fine players. But don't just fib and say they're in great form. Henry Nicholls, we've already discussed, and it feels like you're just flogging the same dead horse here, but he went on the longest run of failure afforded any batsman in the modern history of New Zealand cricket.
Yes.
Rescued that with an unbeaten double ton in the last test of the summer against Sri Lanka, but even with that unbeaten 200, his average since the World Test Championship final has been 27.
Yeah.
There are very logical places to put Rachin Ravindra into that team, whether it is in the batting lineup, whether it is as an all-rounder in place of Phillips, or if it is as a kind of quasi-spin option in place of Ish Sodhi or even Ajaz Patel. Be a little bit more honest.
You were effing and jeffing, weren't you, Paul Ford? Because he's one of your boys, isn't he, from Wellington there. It was a crazy decision, surely.
Yeah, it felt mad going into the game. It felt mad during the game, and some of the rhetoric coming out of the team since, it feels like he's still on the outer and unlikely to be selected. God, I hope I'm wrong. And by the time people are listening to this, of course, we don't know who's in the second Test 11. So hopefully he has managed to be crowbarred in there. But look, when you've got Luke Ronke coming out, as you said, saying that all the batters have been playing really, really well, and then you look at the statistics which say that Devon Conway's batting several runs below his batting average over the last couple of years. Henry Nicholls is batting 7 runs below his batting average over the last couple of years. This is some stats from the Niche Case boys. And Tom Latham's batting 1.5 runs below his career average over the last couple of years. It's absolute bullshit to say that. It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
And, credit to Glenn Phillips. He got in there in an unfamiliar role in his second Test match, and he did incredibly well. I'm really stoked for that. But I think, as Dylan said, there's got to be a place for a guy that's in red-hot form, who's done it on the subcontinent against bloody good bowlers in pretty much those exact conditions. He's worth a shot. So, God, it's just, really, really frustrating. That said, when you look purely at his statistics, 3 Test matches, he's already lost a Test to Bangladesh, and he's only scored 73 runs, averaging less than 15, and got, 3 wickets, averaging more than 63. So, purely on Test statistics, not a compelling case, but I think common sense should prevail.
Yeah, well, I mean, those statistics obviously aren't great, but that was then, this is now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what we discovered in the latest World Cup was what a revelation he's been. I mean, I've always known that he's a good player, obviously, but I didn't think he was that good. It's almost like they said to him, "Hey, you're going great. Just call your jets for a while, and we'll give." And Phillips, you're right. I think that he had a pretty reasonable match, but is he a Test match player, Dylan?
I don't mind the Phillips selection for reasons we've already discussed. I like his spark plug element. I like the way he darts around the field and probably annoys his skipper by moving 10 metres to his left without being sanctioned and all that kind of thing. I like what he can do with the bat, but you do raise a good point. Is he going to be able to do that with the bat consistently at Test level? I have my doubts. But, see, I didn't really have a massive problem with Phillips getting the nod. I just thought, you got to pick Rachin Ravindra. He's a 10-year player for New Zealand. And you know what? He may have been picked by the time you're listening to this, and he may fail.
Well, he has to be, surely. They can't do it again.
Well, it sounded like he was on the outer, as Paul mentioned. And, look, he might fail in this test, but he is a 10-year player for New Zealand.
Agreed.
Get him in there. Stop mucking around.
I feel like Paul Ford is just a straight swap with Sodhi. And you tutu with the bat where he bats.
Happy with that, or as we've talked about, what Henry Nicholls' batting average is heading in the wrong direction. So you could just put him up in the top order there and just use his spin bowling as a bits and pieces option, and leave Phillips to be the main spinner and just say we actually think Ravindra will score more runs in these conditions, so we're going to pick him.
Actually, that's a really good point. Maybe a straight swap for Harry Naps. Yeah, you're losing nothing in the batting front, as far as I'm concerned, and you're adding a little bit more to your bowling arsenal, because you've already touched on this, Dylan. Our spin bowling was disappointing. I mean, looking ahead to the second Test match starting today, and I'll just let the listeners know that we're recording this podcast a couple of hours before the actual start of the game. What areas are we looking at for improvement? A number of them, I would imagine.
Yeah, a couple of things I've made note of. As I said before, the spin bowling has got to get better. It's got to get tighter. And I don't know, I even wondered this when I was watching Bangladesh play our spinners. We kept very attacking fields, which is good. That's probably Tim Southee's way. It's probably the New Zealand way. But there had to be a point, I think, where they realised that there were too many bailout options, and Patel and Ish in particular weren't bowling well enough to carry those sort of fields. And I noticed that when Bangladesh spinners bowled, our bailout options were the high-risk reverse sweep. I think we really only had one batter, Daryl Mitchell, who actually probably put a bit of doubt in the captain's mind about, jeepers, where do I have this fella now? He's got the reverse sweep going, he's got conventional sweep, he's willing to...
Did he overdo it, though?
Possibly.
Yeah, because he didn't connect with a lot of them.
No, but at least he was making them think and making them try and anticipate what he was going to do. The rest of our guys, and I was really disappointed, I have to say, with Devon Conway and the way he batted. Just very insipid kind of pushing forward, which leads me to the other point I made, is that, we've got this reputation as a positive team, yet we batted half a run per over slower than them in the first dig and batted nearly a whole run slower than them in the second dig. And that to me spoke not just of the fact that Bangladesh's spinners and field sets were better, but also that we really had very limited options in terms of taking the game to them to try and put them off their line and length.
Yeah, so Dylan makes a point in terms of the spin bowling pull forward. Let's look at the batting side of things. As mentioned, Conway in a bit of a slump at the moment. Latham, he's having a shocking run. But like Dylan was saying, I believe they're class players and they will come right. What's your thought?
Yeah, as you say, that top order support for Kane Williamson, who we just expect will just continue to score runs at sort of 1,000 runs every time and score a century in every game to make us look good. And I think Mitchell's the other guy that we always talk about. We're probably at the stage of taking him a bit for granted. Traditionally, guys that would do very well against spin, Latham and Nichols, have been will look scratchy and been poor. And yeah, you mentioned Latham. Since he scored 50s against Afghanistan and Netherlands at the Cricket World Cup, he's averaging 9 for New Zealand in his past 8 bats, including 21 and 0 in that first test. So, that is not ideal, particularly when you're getting out playing lap sweeps, which is one of his go-to shots, and against an opposition that he averages more than 70 against. So, I think the Latham conundrum, I mean, I'm not suggesting again that he would be dropped. I'm not saying that, but we just need more out of him. We rely on those guys working with Kane to build those big partnerships, and as you say, put Conway in that bucket too. So, yeah, maybe that sort of top order fragility means that the door needs to open for Ratchin as well.
Well, here's an interesting comment. Stephen writes, "I'd bring Wagner in for Sodhi and Ravindra in for Nichols. Leaves you with new ball swing, full wags when needed, and a trio of spin."
I actually thought they missed Wagner.
Yes.
When the spinners weren't doing enough. And again, Paul made this point last week, and I think we should re-emphasise it, that we ask a lot of these guys like Ish and Ajaz Patel who play bugger all cricket.
Yes.
Ajaz has come out of playing springtime Plunkett Shield in New Zealand, which is about as far conditions-wise as you can get from Bangladesh. East Sodhi has been dragged around India, being smashed around the nets, cities from Bengaluru to Dharamsala. So they are hopelessly under-prepared for this game. But, yeah, I just thought in that second and that third innings in particular, there was a real case for Wagner to come in and bowl at the tits for about half an hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah, and on that point, because that's not Jamison's job.
No.
You know what I mean? We don't want him doing that job. The pitch at Mirpur is expected to turn with more uneven bounce than in Sylhet, which was actually a very good wicket pull forward.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think it was. It didn't break up, took turn. Bangladesh made it look not easy. It seemed like a fair wicket. We just, when you're 7 for 100 or whatever we were in that second innings, you're absolutely buggered. I think, at Mirpur, which is, as you say, slow and uneven, a little bit of rain around apparently on day 2. The battle between, I think, Kane Williamson and Taijul Islam, I mean, he got him out twice in that first test match. Taijul averages 24 at the stadium, and he's the second highest wicket taker of all time at the venue. So that is a duel, and he's got a target in mind too. I see Cricinfo said that he needs 8 wickets to go past Shakib Al Hasan and become the highest wicket taker at that venue. So that shapes up as a pivotal battle between those two guys.
Where on the embarrassment scale would a 0-2 loss sit with you? I imagine, Dylan Cleaver, you'd be apoplectic.
Yeah, it wouldn't be great, would it? It would be right up there. Well, actually, it wouldn't be up there with that disastrous tour of Australia a couple of years ago, because that was just so front and centre. It was a great time zone, and we're also looking forward to it getting back to the MCG for Boxing Day because we deserve it.
Yes.
Because we've been so good. So that was massively embarrassing, and I couldn't get out of bed for about a week after that. But this one would just be really annoying and would bring back all those thoughts that were starting to percolate last summer when we got hammered by England at Mount Maunganui. That was starting to percolate, going back a little bit further to the tours of India and when Bangladesh beat us at the Mount Maunganui. And that thought is this the end of something?
Waiting. Sure, Paul.
Of course. I was just going to say, yes, it was. That was that New Year's Day, that first Test match, and then a week later, New Zealand absolutely annihilated Bangladesh by an innings of 117 runs. So, we'd obviously take that at Mirpur, but it just doesn't feel that likely, just given the conditions, given the form that both teams are in. I think this is going to be a bit of a nail biter, to be honest.
Can I just note too that the air conditions for this test are listed by AccuWeather as dangerous.
Oh.
Not dangerous as in a sort of Palestinian way, I assume.
No, thinking more as a carbon monoxide ingestion.
Yes.
Okay.
Slow suffocation.
So not that dangerous then. A little bit dangerous.
Now the White Ferns shocker at Suzie Bates Oval, losing the two T20s against Pakistan in comprehensive fashion. The first game, New Zealand 127 for 6, Pakistan 132 for 3 in the 18th. The second, New Zealand 127 for 7 and Pakistan 137 for 6. And Dave B writes, the White Ferns need to be better. They have an absolutely golden opportunity with a number of free-to-air games without competition from the men's game in early December. They could bring the public along with some heroic performances, but bugger me, that was a tough watch on Sunday.
Yeah. Well put, Dave V, and he's absolutely 100% right there. And look, yesterday was a equally tough watch, and I know it says Pakistan won by 10 runs, but it felt like a lot more than that. New Zealand collapsed early. The batting has just been so nothing. It's like it's
absent.
Yeah, it's just so there's
no intent.
No intent.
Yes.
Hannah Rowe and Maddie Green have shown a little bit of spark, scoring more than a run of the ball. But the rest seem to have this theory locked into their head that you have, and it's the Glenn Phillips theory from the World Cup, that you've always got more time than you think.
Yes.
Really, someone needs to kick them up the butt and say you've actually got less time than you think.
Yeah, well, it's about...
Flip it on its head.
It's about intent, Paul, because I was watching a fair bit of that, and there wasn't any. And that's right. It's like they've got all day to bat. It's actually not the case. It's a T20, for God's sake.
Yeah, and it's a worry when you're sort of numbers 7, 8, and 9 are trying to get 40 off the last 2 overs, and then you say, "Oh, they seem to show quite a lot of intent. That was good." It's like, yeah, that's how you meant to play T20 cricket. It was, very, very strange. Couple of, I guess, observations. One that Scotty Stevenson made in the commentary, which was that there just seems to be a lack of joy in the team, and I don't even really know what he meant exactly, but he was just saying, the spark, the verve, the vigour of the Pakistan team versus the New Zealanders, who even when they got wickets, it just felt flat, and that's sad.
Yeah.
And I saw a comment from the coach, Ben Sawyer, who Jace calls Tom Sawyer, but and this is what he said: "I think we should have done that quite easily, to be honest." And that was after yesterday's game, and I don't disagree with him, but it's an interesting mindset if that's what the players were taking into the run chase. Oh, this will be a piece of piss. It's a bit of a worry, and of course, an unassailable 2-0 lead now, and the series is gone. Shambles.
And there's no excuse also for woeful fielding.
Oh, I know. Sometimes it was out and out dreadful, and again, I don't like picking on individuals because fielding really
but
is.
You will.
Fielding really is a team
effort. But you're going to.
But I would say that the tone of the fielding is set by the wicketkeeper. And I do not think the wicket keeping has been international standard.
Okay.
That's Bernardine Bezuidenhout, correct?
I wasn't going to mention names.
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, because I was going to. Well, I was actually going to throw her under a different bus, which is that in her last 9 bats, all formats. So this is playing for ND. This is playing against South Africa. This is playing against Sri Lanka and Pakistan. Opening the batting, 137 runs in 9 bats, averaging 15. That is not sustainable at the top of the order in the power play. That just puts an additional amount of pressure on the big guns of Bates, Devine and Kerr.
Yeah, well, let's move on to the Ford Trophy, fellas. Northern District still atop the table there on 11 points. Auckland on 8, Otago 6, CD 6, Canterbury 5, Wellington 2. Wet third round, but full round tomorrow. Auckland versus ND, CD versus Otago, Wellington versus Canterbury, and Phineas Slog back in the runs, fellas.
Yeah, and it's timely too because the Black Caps are naming their ODI squad tomorrow morning for the home series against Bangladesh. I'm just wondering, throw it over to both of you, maybe you first, Jason, any comings and goings from that World Cup squad that you can see?
No, not really.
No room for Phineas Slog? He scored some runs. I think he's averaging 80.
No, for sure I'd have an in there. I still think in his case he's been found out a little bit. And, and maybe we look to have a bit of a, if Latham carries on in the form he's in, we look to maybe make a change there on the wicket-keeping front. Maybe you make Cleaver.
What about big bad Benny Lister?
Oh, nah.
Jeepers, you've changed.
Well, no, I still think, yeah, and I guess it just shows the difference between the domestic game and the international game. I just felt he wasn't bowling as well as he was in the domestic game. What about you, Paul Ford?
Yeah, I think the Finn Allen one's an interesting one, as you say, that squad for the next game. Don't forget, too, that the IPL auction is nigh approaching as well, and he's just been let go from his franchise team, as have a number of New Zealanders. So, yeah, there'll be a little bit of there'll be some guys that are very, very keen to show their wares on the international stage. So a little bit of context for these upcoming games too.
Yeah, worldwide, let's go to the world game. India win the T20 series versus Australia 4-1, exacting, I suppose, some kind of revenge from the final. Surprise, surprise, Matthew Wade spits the dummy.
Yeah, I think he had a good point though. Actually, in the final game, which was a dead rubber, Australia were actually chasing a relatively by the standards of the series, a relatively low total, and they got very close, got it down to the last over. He faced a bouncer, which he would have needed a step ladder to get to, and the umpire at square leg kept his arms at his side, no dice, and he showed his displeasure.
Well, he always does that.
And then later in the over, this was great. So I think it was a different umpire. Oh, I need to think that through. Anyway, there was a ball that got so that they need 9 off 6, right? And then there was that thing that Dylan talked about, and then Nathan Ellis was facing. He smashed a ball back. It came off Arshdeep's hands. It hit the umpire who was trying to get out of the way, but it completely stopped. It was going for 4 for all money, and they ended up only getting a single. So it was a case of double rage with the umpire involved in a dicey decision, and then literally getting in the way of the ball.
Yeah. The West Indies take a 1-0 lead against England. God, they've been awful.
Who, England?
Yes.
Both of them have.
Well, both of them have. But, yeah. I mean, yeah.
There was a high-scoring win, actually. It was a good win for the West Indies because they need a little bit of cheer there. Obviously, they didn't go to the World Cup because they didn't qualify, which is an absolute shocker in terms of global cricket. A lot of controversy in the West Indies about the team that was selected. They've got, I think it might be Desmond Haynes and Darren Sammy might be on the selection panel now, and they dropped Darren Bravo, who was one of the top run scorers, if not the top run scorer in the West Indies domestic one-day competition. Clearly a kind of personal decision rather than a performance decision, and they struggled to justify that, and which led to his brother coming out and basically saying nothing changes in West Indies cricket. It's a shambles. It's a collection of fools. And lo and behold, they're going to beat mighty England.
Yeah, wow.
Shy Hope, absolutely magnificent in that win. The best thing I saw on this was Iceland Cricket. If you don't follow them on Twitter, they are absolutely brilliant. Whoever's running that account is a genius. There was a great tweet which said, once he's been jettisoned by England, could Sam Curran eventually play for Iceland? Not sure we need another medium pace lower order slogger. The jury's out on what he would add to our squad. Absolutely burned by Iceland Cricket as Sam Curran got taken to the cleaners in that game. Went for 90-something, I believe.
Yeah. Mitchell Johnson, well, he's come out swinging, hasn't he? Really laying into Davey Dum Dum. What was he saying? I read that, something along the lines of, why are we accommodating this guy, allowing him to decide this out-of-form opener, when he gets to sign off, also who was a significant part of one of the most disgraceful things in Australian history. Why, Paul Ford?
Yeah, this was amazing. He also put in a comment there about Bunnings selling out of sandpaper, which I don't know about you, Dylan Cleaver. That sounds like the ghostwriter might have got a little bit carried away there. It was very interesting. There's a whole backstory here where Mitchell Johnson has previously said he's not sure that. David Warner's wife Candice has come out and said, "Oh, it's all well and good that you might want to drop David, but there's not really any other young players coming through." And Mitchell Johnson took exception to that. So he detonated a column a few months ago about that. And David Warner sent him a really, really shitty message on Instagram, which he has refused to divulge. Both sides have refused to divulge the details of that. But apparently it sounds like it got into mental health and all sorts of things and leave my wife alone and all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole backstory here. Mitchell Johnson certainly hasn't backed down. I guess he's probably just saying what most of the world and probably lots of Australia are actually thinking, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's still rumbling on. Like, he's come out today as well because Warner's manager came out and said, he's got to grow up. He's just taking shots like that. But also George Bailey was asked about it, and he said, "I hope he's all right." And that was Mitchell Johnson.
Whistling mental health.
Yeah, Mitchell Johnson has taken that as a dig at him because he's been honest about his mental health problems in the past. He has actually said, and I'm really pleased about this because it is a ghost-written column, he said, "No, I said that, I meant it, I signed off on it. If I had my time again, I might take out the line about Bunnings because it was a bit gratuitous, but the rest of it I absolutely stand by." And I do think he has got a point, actually, about the whole... This is a long time ago David Warner came out and said, "Actually, I want the Sydney test to be my last test home against Bangladesh, Pakistan, and that's when I'll bow out." And I must admit, at the time, I thought, "Oh, really?"
Yeah, it was way back, wasn't it?
It's not like he's sort of Steve Waugh or anything. I don't even know if there was that much ceremony. And that was where the smart-ass line from Mitchell Johnson came, where he said that Steve Waugh got the red hankies to wave him goodbye. What are they going to wave at the SCG for Warner? Bunnings will sell out of yellow sandpaper or something like that, which is childish, but as a neutral, watching it from afar,
amusing,
absolutely magnificent.
Yeah. Waiting. Hey, right now it's time for Paul Ford's News or Ruse.
Yeah, it is. And the Oi Hoi Trophy, the world's ugliest cricket trophy, is on the mantelpiece in Karori because I've won 2 weeks in a row by accident. 3 bits of news. There'll be something wrong with one of them. You boys tell me what it is and you can have the trophy at your neck of the woods. In Australia, some of the world's biggest cricket tournaments will sit behind a paywall from next year after Amazon Prime signed an exclusive local deal with the sports governing body. Prime Video will be the exclusive Australian broadcaster for Cricket World Cups, T20 World Cups, the Champions Trophy and the World Test Championship Final until 2027. The agreement means cricket fans will require a Prime Video subscription to watch Australia's two punishingly annoying teams defend their titles. The federal government over there is in the midst of changing laws to make it more difficult for streaming services to buy sports broadcast rights because they are concerned they will not be available to the public. This means that the array of broadcast rights previously held by Foxtel, Channel 9 and Channel 7 will be consolidated, gone skis, all across to Prime Video. So, maybe that's a little glimpse into the future. Of course, Amazon has an Australia and New Zealand office, so look out for that one.
Prime Video, by the way, is bloody good.
I don't mind it.
Yeah, it's like $8 a month.
And they probably signalled their intentions there because it was Prime that carried that punishing docu-series on the Australian team called The Test.
Yes.
Weren't they?
Yeah, that's right. And that series is coming back, I think, our third series of that one. So keep an eye out for that too on there for your $8 a month. Number 2, former New Zealand cricket coach John Bracewell has described Mad Lou Vincent's life ban from all forms of cricket as unjust. The England and Wales Cricket Board banned the 45-year-old for life in 2014 after Vincent admitted he had breached the anti-corruption regulations. The terms of his ban means that Vincent cannot earn a living from playing the sport. He's not permitted to enter a ground while an official match is in progress. He pleaded guilty to a total of 18 anti-corruption breaches over 3 years. It is understood Vincent participated in a charity cricket game in Whangarei on Thursday, which featured a number of former Kiwi cricketers alongside Slog King, ACC head G Lane. and cover drive specialist Jeremy James Drummond-Wells. Matches that don't fall under New Zealand cricket's jurisdiction are said to not be in breach of the ban. John Bracewell said, "I feel sorry for him. That's the way his career ended. It ended with a life sentence. I thought that was unjust. He hasn't killed anybody. How does he get life?" Heavy stuff. And number 3, speaking of people with a reputation, former Pakistan cricket captain Salman Butt has been withdrawn as a selection consultant for the Pakistan Cricket Board. Big old, dirty old, smelly old Butt served a 7-month prison term and a 5-year ban after being found guilty of spot fixing in a test match against England in 2010. He was withdrawn from the position nomination a day later in a hastily called press conference by Chief Selector Wahab Riaz. He said, "I'm reverting the decision to hire Salman as we're friends and I've been accused of nepotism." Butt was the central character in a spot fixing scandal that sent shockwaves through cricket in September 2010. And then, of course, the Shamozzle with Muhammad Asif and Muhammad Amir, all 3 went to prison. There we go, boys.
Shit.
That
I've got no
is
idea.
I wouldn't have a clue on any of those, to be perfectly honest.
No,
with
they
you.
all sounded completely plausible. I hadn't heard those John Bracewell comments, but I do know that there are things afoot there with the whole Lou Vincent thing. Australia tournaments, Amazon Prime, all the ICC things, yep, that would make sense. Salman Butt, oh, God, the only thing I can think of is I thought that Salman Butt got more than a 5-year ban.
Well, I was going to go that he actually served more than 7 months in prison.
No, this is glaringly obvious. Jeremy James Drummond-Wells did not participate in the cricket charity match in Whangarei. I thought you would have seen him in the office. Come on.
I actually had a very good chat to G Lane about that match, actually.
Same.
And that wasn't meant.
How did Jeremy go?
He said that Jeremy played really well.
Bullshit.
Jesus.
Not once did he say that Jeremy wasn't playing.
No. Hey, right now it's time for Dylan Cleaver's Who Am I?
Okay, well, I'm not going to make this as hard. I know that you two really struggled last week. And
I was really gutted, I'll be honest. I was really gutted about that.
And the last thing I want to do is embarrass my BYC, my mates. I consider you my mates, so this one's going to be a lot easier. We did have a couple of winners last week, though, who have forgotten to note who they were.
I think they're in the chat there.
They are in the chat, but the person was Stu Gillespie.
Yes.
Who played 1 test at the Basin Reserve. The test that Richard Hadley got his 300th wicket in, Alan Border, LBW, and he starred more as a night watchman, scoring 28 than he did as a bowler. So Stu Gillespie, and congrats to those who emailed in with the winner. Right.
Got heaps of entries too, so good. God, I love our audience. Very, very informed and good at Googling.
So I've made this one easier. Who am I? And there's a couple of clues in the text, okay? So listen carefully.
Well, I hope so.
Jerry Wells.
No, a couple of cryptic clues, sorry, in the text, as well as out-and-out clues. I was a domestic beast with a combined 224 games for the only major association I played for. I was also an international, but was defrocked after just a few nondescript tests and 2 handfuls of ODIs across 8 years, after not quite finding the spark needed for the top level. I was known as a feisty bastard, perhaps a nod to my West Coast roots, and it has been noted that I probably would have played more for New Zealand were it not for a personality clash with Martin David Crowe. Who am I? And who went first last time? I think, or you two can choose. You want to go first?
Paul, you can go first.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Would you like me to repeat the keys?
West Coast, Martin Crowe.
Yeah, I was thinking it was Brendan Bracewell for as we got into it, but he doesn't fit that.
No, he played for
How many tests did you say?
2, was it?
3 tests.
3 tests.
And a couple of handfuls of ODIs across 8 years at the top level.
3 tests.
Yeah. I was a domestic beast. 224 games for the only major association team I played for. But when it came to internationals, I was defrocked quite early.
Defrocked is such a good word too. Defrocked. No, I'm struggling with that. I don't know. I've got like Vaughan Brown kind of in my head. I can't think of West Coast cricketers. That's a good clue, but it doesn't join a dot for me.
What about
Defrocked, couldn't find the spark for the top level. Ooh, jeepers. I'm going to have to go even easier.
I'm just trying to... Who was the one that got sconed by Brett Lee?
Oh, Michael Paps.
Yes.
No. Neither of you have got it. We're going to have to throw it over to our
Good.
beautiful listeners again.
Yeah, well, you see, I know the answer, but I don't want to ruin it for all the listeners out there. Hey, now in terms of my poetry, now I was scrolling through screeds of poetry today regarding the game of cricket, and it's shit. It's terrible.
Okay.
So what's going to have to happen is I'm going to have to write my own.
Okay.
At least then we'll know we're getting top quality, all right? So next week's podcast, I'll scroll a cricket poem. In the meantime, it's Paul Ford's Cricket Violence Corner.
Paul Ford's Cricket Violence Corner.
I've got a poem. I
Yes.
pray the game's a belter and walked out to the square, that none of my nicks find a palm and that I score my share. Anyway, Cricket Violence Corner in
You see what I
Chandigarh,
mean?
India this
Shit.
week. In Chandigarh, India this week, a 14-year-old boy has been scolded for trespassing into a school to watch girls sweat and frolic during their cricket trials. The 14-year-old responded by attacking the school's headmaster with an iron rod to the head on Wednesday. Kesar Singh, 55, is the headmaster of Government High School in Sector 19, while the boy is a student of the adjoining Government Model Senior Secondary School. Both schools share a common boundary wall and a small gate that is used to enter each other's premises. Teachers said the boy was seen entering the high school from the small gate and was watching the girls play cricket. The headmaster caught him and ticked him off, directing him not to come to his school through the small gate. The student left and then returned with an iron rod from a broken bench and hid behind the small gate. When the headmaster crossed in front of him, he hit him with the rod twice, said eyewitnesses, as the headmaster slumped to the floor. Teachers grabbed the accused and called the cops. And I've rung the hospital, and the headmaster's going to be okay, but has got a swollen temple. So there we go. Kesar Singh, we wish you well and getting better. Yeah, this week's TAB Good Punt is $100 on Kane Williamson to score a ton and the Black Caps to win, paying $5. That's from G Lane. Does anyone think that that's a chance? I'm on board with that, actually.
Say that again.
$100 on Kane Williamson to score a ton and the Black Caps to win to get back $500.
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
Yes.
I've got a terrible confession to make after predicting the Black Caps to score 700.
Oh, here we
last
go.
week.
Oh, here we go.
I won $50 on Bangladesh winning that test.
You see? Betting against the boys. God.
What's it called? Heaviness insurance or something like
My
that?
God, yes. Hey,
What do these three people have in common, Jace? Lou Vincent, Selman Butt, Dylan Cleaver. I mean, come on.
Yeah, totally, man, totally. Dylan, what's going on in the bounce at the moment, mate?
The bounce is going great guns. Thanks, Jace. We're got a couple of book giveaways at the moment. Cal Heyman head on and Modern New Zealand Cricket Greats from Stephen Fleming to Kane Williamson. Both I had a hand in writing, but dylancleaver.substack.com or just Google Dylan Cleaver, The Bounce.
Good stuff, mate. Paul Ford, if people want to get in touch with us, what are they doing?
Flick us an email to byc@beigebrigade.co.nz or slide into the DMs of the Alternative Commentary Collective or the Beige Brigade on Instagram or Facebook, and just keep your epistles to sort of 150 words or thereabouts, and we'll get to them over the next few weeks.
Great stuff, mate. Well, that brings us to the end of this podcast. Looking forward to the match this afternoon, tuning into some live Test cricket, fellas, and this beautiful day outside. Good times. Good times. Until next week, we'll see you later.